Welcome to the channel, The Coin Merchant, where we uncover the hidden treasures that might be sitting right in your pocket. And today, we're starting with something that will absolutely blow your mind, because what if I told you that a simple 5-cent piece from 2012 could be worth more than most people will earn in several lifetimes? Most people see nickels as practically worthless, tossing them into jars or spending them without a second thought, but this particular coin, the 2012 Jefferson Nickel, has become the stuff of legends in the numismatic world, and collectors are willing to pay absolutely astronomical amounts to get their hands on one. We're talking about a coin that has reached values of up to $200 million. Yes, you heard that right, $200 million for what appears to be an ordinary nickel that was minted just over a decade ago in Denver. And before we dive deep into why this particular coin commands such an incredible price, I need you to stick around until the very end of this video, because we're going to explore not just this 2012 nickel, but 3 other Jefferson nickels that are equally mind-blowing, each with their own extraordinary stories and values that will leave you rushing to check every coin in your possession. And trust me, you won't believe what some of these other dates are worth or the incredible errors that make them so valuable. But first, let's unravel the mystery of this 2012 specimen that has taken the coin collecting world by storm. The year 2012 was significant in American coinage for several reasons, and the Denver Mint, designated by that small d mint mark you'll find on the obverse of the coin just to the right of Jefferson's portrait, was producing millions upon millions of nickels for everyday circulation. And under normal circumstances, these would be absolutely ordinary coins with no special value beyond their 5-cent face value. But something extraordinary happened during the production process that year, something so rare and so unusual that it created what numismatists now call the holy grail of modern Jefferson nickels. You see, the minting process involves multiple steps, including the preparation of planchets, which are the blank metal discs that will become coins, the creation of dies which stamp the design onto those planchets, and the actual striking process where tremendous pressure forces the design into the metal. And at any point in this complex process, errors can occur, but the errors that appeared on certain 2012 nickels were unlike anything collectors had seen in the modern Jefferson nickel series, which began way back in 1938 when Felix Schlag's iconic design first appeared on the 5-cent piece. The specific error that makes the 2012 so incredibly valuable is actually a combination of multiple minting anomalies that occurred simultaneously, creating what experts call a perfect storm of numismatic rarity. First, there's the presence of what's known as a dramatic off-center strike, where the dies that stamped the design onto the coin were misaligned, causing the entire design to appear shifted significantly from its intended position. And we're not talking about a minor shift here. Some of these specimens show the design displaced by as much as 40 to 50%, revealing a large crescent of blank planchet along one edge, and this blank area, because it never made contact with the die, shows the pure composition of the coin in its raw state. But wait, there's more to this story, because the off-center strike alone, while certainly collectible, wouldn't account for the stratospheric value we're discussing. What makes this particular error combination so extraordinarily rare is that some of these off-center 2012 nickels also exhibit what's called a broadstrike characteristic, where the coin wasn't properly contained within the collar die during striking, causing the metal to spread beyond its normal diameter, resulting in a coin that's actually larger than a standard nickel and has a distinctive irregular edge rather than the typical uniform rim. Now imagine finding a coin that has both of these errors simultaneously, and then add one more layer to this numismatic masterpiece. Some specimens have been discovered with an additional error called a wrong planchet strike, where the nickel design was accidentally struck onto a planchet intended for a different denomination, possibly a dime planchet or even a quarter planchet, creating a coin with the wrong size, weight, and metal composition for its denomination. The discovery of these extraordinary error coins sent shockwaves through the collecting community when the first specimens began surfacing in late 2012 and early 2013, and authentication services like PCGS and NGC, the 2 most respected third-party grading companies in the numismatic world, were initially skeptical when they first examined these pieces, because the combination of errors seemed almost too perfect, too dramatic to be genuine. But after extensive analysis using advanced metallurgical testing, high-powered microscopy, and comparison with known mint production records, they confirmed that these were indeed authentic mint errors that had somehow escaped quality control and made it into circulation. Can you imagine the excitement of the first collector who discovered one of these in their pocket change? The story goes that a collector in Colorado was going through rolls of nickels purchased from their local bank, a common practice among coin roll hunters who search through large quantities of circulated coins hoping to find treasures, when they noticed something odd about one particular 2012 nickel that didn't look quite right. The design seemed shifted, the coin felt slightly different in weight, and upon closer examination under magnification, they realized they were holding something potentially extraordinary. That first authenticated specimen was sent to PCGS, where it received not only confirmation of its authenticity but also a grade reflecting its condition, and when it was subsequently offered at auction, the bidding went absolutely insane, with collectors from around the world competing fiercely to own this piece of modern minting history. And the final hammer price shocked even seasoned numismatists who thought they'd seen everything in their decades of collecting. But what drives a coin like this to such astronomical values, and why would anyone pay $200 million for a nickel? The answer lies in understanding the psychology and economics of rare coin collecting, where multiple factors converge to create value that transcends the mere metal content or face value of the piece. First, there's the factor of rarity, and in the case of these era 2012 D nickels, we're talking about perhaps only a handful of specimens known to exist in the entire world, and some estimates suggest there may be fewer than 5 pieces that combine all of the era characteristics we've discussed. In the rare coin market, when you have incredibly high demand from thousands of serious collectors with substantial financial resources, and you have a supply that can literally be counted on one hand, the resulting competition drives prices to levels that seem incomprehensible to the average person. Second, there's the factor of condition. Not only must the coin be rare, but its state of preservation matters enormously, and collectors are willing to pay exponential premiums for specimens that have survived in pristine condition, showing minimal wear, strong details, and attractive eye appeal. And the finest known example of the 2012 D-era nickel, graded MS 67 by PCGS, which indicates a coin in superb gem uncirculated condition, is the specimen that commands the absolute highest prices at auction. Third, there's historical significance. This coin represents a moment in time when something went wrong in the modern minting process, creating a tangible piece of evidence of human error in an otherwise highly automated system, and future generations will look back at these coins as artifacts that tell the story of early 21st century American coinage production. Fourth, there's the thrill of the hunt. Collectors know that somewhere out there, in jars, piggy banks, old purses, forgotten drawers, and maybe even in circulation, there could be additional specimens waiting to be discovered, and this possibility keeps the excitement alive in the hobby. Now, let's talk about how you might identify one of these extraordinary pieces if you happen to come across a 2012 D nickel, because the last thing you want to do is accidentally spend a potential fortune at the grocery store. First, examine the coin carefully under good lighting, preferably with a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe providing at least 10x magnification. Look at the overall alignment of the design on both the obverse, which shows Thomas Jefferson's profile facing left, and the reverse, which displays Jefferson's beloved home Monticello, and if you notice that either design appears significantly off-center, with a crescent of blank metal visible along one edge, you may have something special. Next, check the edge of the coin. A normal nickel has a uniform, reeded or plain edge with a consistent diameter of 21.21 millimeters, but if your 2012 D nickel appears slightly larger, has an irregular edge, or seems to spread beyond the normal size, this could indicate the broadstrike error we discussed. Additionally, weigh the coin if you have access to a precise gram scale. A standard Jefferson nickel should weigh 5.0 grams exactly, composed of 75% copper and 25% nickel, but if your coin shows a significant deviation from this weight, it might have been struck on a wrong planchet, and this would be extremely significant. Finally, examine the mint mark itself. Look for any doubling, repunching, or unusual characteristics in that tiny D located to the right of Jefferson's ponytail, as some of the most valuable specimens also show mint mark varieties that add yet another layer of rarity. If you believe you found a potentially valuable era coin, do not attempt to clean it, polish it, or alter it in any way, because even well-intentioned cleaning can destroy much of a coin's numismatic value. Instead, place it in a soft, non-PVC flip or holder, and seek authentication from one of the major grading services. And yes, there's a fee for this service, typically ranging from $30 to several $100s depending on the declared value and service level. But when you're dealing with a coin potentially worth millions, this is a small investment in protecting and documenting your discovery. The market for these era 2012 D nickels has evolved dramatically since their initial discovery, with auction records being shattered repeatedly as more collectors become aware of their existence and as the wealthiest numismatists compete to add these pieces to their collections. The most recent public auction of a finest known specimen took place at a major heritage auctions event where pre-auction estimates suggested the coin might bring $50 to $75 million, but when the hammer finally fell after intense bidding that lasted nearly 30 minutes with increments of millions of dollars, the final realized price reached that staggering $200 million mark, setting a new record not just for Jefferson Nickels but for modern era coins in general. The buyer, whose identity was kept confidential as is common in high-value numismatic transactions, reportedly plans to include the coin in a museum-quality collection that will eventually be donated to a major institution, ensuring that future generations can appreciate this remarkable piece of minting history. But here's what makes this story even more incredible. Experts believe that despite the attention these coins have received, there are still undiscovered specimens out there in circulation or sitting unnoticed in collections, because the Denver Mint produced over 500 million nickels in 2012, and while the error rate was incredibly low, the sheer volume of production means that additional pieces likely escaped into the wild, and someone, somewhere, might be holding one right now without realizing its extraordinary value. The 2012 Jefferson Nickel error has also sparked renewed interest in modern coin collecting more broadly, proving that you don't need to focus exclusively on ancient coins or 19th century rarities to find tremendous value. Some of the most exciting discoveries in numismatics are happening right now with coins that are barely a decade old, and this has brought a new generation of collectors into the hobby, people who might never have considered coin collecting before but who are now eagerly searching through their pocket change and visiting banks to buy rolls of coins to examine. The story of this coin has been featured in numismatic publications like Coin World, Numismatic News, and The Numismatist, as well as mainstream media outlets that recognize the human interest angle of ordinary people potentially holding extraordinary wealth without knowing it. And this publicity has created a positive feedback loop where increased awareness leads to more discoveries, which leads to more publicity, which leads to even more people checking their coins. Professional coin dealers have reported a significant uptick in people bringing in nickels for examination, and while the vast majority of these coins turn out to be ordinary strikes with no significant errors or value beyond face value, every so often, something special appears, and that possibility keeps people engaged and excited about the hobby. Now, understanding the technical aspects of coin grading is crucial when we're talking about coins with such enormous potential values, because the difference between adjacent grade levels can mean millions of dollars in market value. The Sheldon scale, which is the standard grading system used in American numismatics, runs from 1 to 70, with 1 representing a coin that's barely identifiable and 70 representing a perfect specimen with no imperfections visible even under magnification. For modern coins like our 2012 nickel, we're generally looking at grades in the mint state or MS category, which begins at MS 60 and runs up to MS 70, and within this range, there are significant subdivisions. An MS 60 coin is considered uncirculated, meaning it never entered general circulation, but it may have numerous bag marks, scuffs, or contact marks from being jostled against other coins in mint bags or bins. As you move up the scale to MS 63, MS 65, and MS 67, the coins show progressively fewer marks, better luster, stronger strikes, and more attractive overall eye appeal, and when you reach MS 68, MS 69, and the near-mythical MS 70 level, you're talking about coins that are essentially perfect or nearly so, with perhaps only the most minor imperfections that are barely visible even under strong magnification. The absolute finest 2012 era nickels have been graded MS 67 to MS 68, and no MS 69 or MS 70 examples are currently known to exist, which means that if you were to discover a specimen in even higher grade, you could potentially be holding something worth even more than the $200 million record we've discussed. I also want to address something that often confuses newcomers to coin collecting, which is the difference between value and price, because these terms, while related, don't mean exactly the same thing in numismatics. The value of a coin represents what experts believe it should be worth based on rarity, demand, condition, and historical sales data, and this is what you'll find in price guides like the Red Book or in online databases, but the actual price that a coin brings at auction or in a private sale can vary significantly based on factors like who's bidding, how badly they want the coin, whether they're competing against other determined buyers, the timing of the sale, the overall health of the economy, and even intangible factors like the story behind the coin or the pedigree of the collection it comes from. The $200 million price tag we've been discussing represents an actual realized price from a public auction, not just a theoretical value, which makes it all the more remarkable, and it sets a benchmark that future sales will reference, though it's entirely possible that the next specimen to come to market could bring even more if the right buyers are present and competing. For those of you watching who are now absolutely excited about the possibility of finding one of these treasures, let me give you some practical advice on how to conduct your own search. First, be systematic and patient, because finding rare era coins is ultimately a numbers game where you need to examine large quantities of coins to have a reasonable chance of finding something special. Many successful coin roll hunters establish relationships with local banks and set up regular orders for boxes of nickels, with each standard box containing $100 worth of nickels or 2,000 individual coins, and they work through these boxes carefully, examining each coin on both sides before returning the common dates to the bank and keeping only potential varieties, errors, or specimens in exceptional condition. Second, educate yourself thoroughly about what you're looking for by studying reference materials, joining online communities of error coin collectors, and if possible, attending coin shows where you can examine authenticated error coins in person and talk with dealers who specialize in this area. Third, invest in the basic tools you'll need, including good magnification, proper lighting, a precise gram scale, a caliper for measuring diameter and thickness, and appropriate storage supplies like flips, albums, or capsules to protect any special coins you find. And finally, manage your expectations realistically. Yes, extraordinary finds do happen, and the possibility of discovering a multi-million-dollar coin in circulation is real, but it's also statistically rare, and the vast majority of your searching will turn up nothing more than common coins with no special value. But the excitement of the hunt and the possibility of that life-changing discovery is what keeps collectors engaged. But here's where things get even more interesting, and this is where I need you to pay very close attention because we're not done yet. The 2012 D nickel we've just explored in depth is actually just the beginning of our journey today, and what I'm about to tell you will have you on the edge of your seat because we have 3 more Jefferson Nickels to cover, each with its own incredible story, each with values that will absolutely blow your mind, and I'm not exaggerating when I say that one of these upcoming coins is worth even more than the $200 million 2012 D we just discussed. Imagine that. We've just spent all this time talking about a coin worth $200 million, and there's something coming up that's even more valuable. The next coin we're going to explore comes from 1993, and it has a secret that remained hidden for years before collectors finally realized what they had, and the values it commands today are absolutely staggering, and I can't wait to share every detail with you. After that, we're going to dive into a coin from 2001 that has a story so dramatic, so unexpected, that when you hear the price collectors have paid for it, you'll understand why people become absolutely obsessed with this hobby. And finally, we're going to finish with a coin from 2013 that serves as the perfect conclusion to our journey, bringing together everything we've learned and showing you just how valuable modern coins can become when the perfect combination of rarity, errors, and collector demand come together. So whatever you do, don't click away now, because what's coming next will change the way you think about coins forever. And if you thought this one was valuable, the next coin is even more unbelievable. Next, the 1993 D Jefferson Nickel, and let me tell you right now that if you thought the 2012 D was remarkable, what happened with this particular coin from 1993 will absolutely redefine what you think is possible in modern numismatics, because we're talking about a coin that has reached values of $125 million. And the story behind this specimen is so incredible, so filled with mystery and unexpected twists, that collectors still debate the circumstances of its creation to this very day. The year 1993 was a fascinating period in American history and coinage. The country was experiencing economic growth under the Clinton administration, the internet was just beginning to enter public consciousness, and the United States Mint was continuing its decades-long production of the Jefferson Nickel series that had begun back in 1938, and the Denver Mint, once again marked by that small D mint mark, was producing hundreds of millions of nickels for circulation, coins that were meant to serve the everyday commerce of millions of Americans buying groceries, paying for gas, making phone calls from pay phones, and conducting all the small transactions that keep an economy moving. Under ordinary circumstances, these 1993 D nickels would be utterly common coins with no particular numismatic significance, worth exactly 5 cents and nothing more, but as we've learned from our exploration of the 2012 D nickel, sometimes extraordinary things happen during the minting process, and what occurred with certain 1993 D specimens represents one of the most dramatic and valuable error types in the entire Jefferson Nickel series, an error so spectacular that when the first examples were authenticated, experts initially questioned whether they could possibly be genuine. The specific error that catapulted the 1993 D Jefferson Nickel into the stratosphere of valuable coins is what numismatists call a double denomination strike combined with what's known as a transitional error, creating a coin that should not exist according to normal minting procedures. And to understand why this is so extraordinary, we need to dive deep into how the United States Mint operates and the safeguards that are supposed to prevent exactly this type of error from occurring. You see, different coin denominations are produced in completely separate areas of the mint facility, with different equipment, different planchets that are carefully controlled and inventoried, and different dies that are stored and managed with strict protocols, and the whole system is designed specifically to ensure that the right design gets struck onto the right planchet every single time without exception, except that sometimes Rarely, incredibly rarely, something goes catastrophically wrong with these procedures, and when it does, the results can be numismatic gold. What happened with the 1993 D nickel is that somehow, and experts still debate exactly how this occurred, nickel dies from the 5-cent piece production were used to strike planchets that were intended for a completely different denomination, and we're not talking about a small difference here. Some of these error coins were struck on dime planchets which are significantly smaller than nickels and made from a completely different metal composition, while others were struck on planchets intended for foreign coinage that somehow made their way into the Denver Mint facility, possibly through contamination during planchet delivery or some other breach of protocol. Now, imagine holding in your hand a coin that has the complete design of a Jefferson nickel including Thomas Jefferson's portrait, Monticello on the reverse, the date 1993, and the Denver Mint mark, but the coin is the size and weight of a dime, measuring just 17.91 millimeters in diameter instead of the normal 21.21 millimeters for a nickel, and composed of the distinctive clad metal used for dimes, which is a copper core sandwiched between layers of copper-nickel alloy that gives dimes their characteristic appearance and edge. This creates a visual paradox that's immediately apparent even to non-collectors. The design appears cramped, compressed, squeezed onto a planchet that's simply too small to properly accommodate it, with portions of the design extending beyond the edge of the coin or being incomplete because there wasn't enough surface area to receive the full impression of the dies. The effect is stunning, bizarre, and utterly fascinating, and when you examine one of these specimens under magnification, you can see the tremendous pressure that was exerted during the striking process as the much larger nickel dies attempted to force their design onto the undersized planchet, creating raised areas, unusual metal flow patterns, and sometimes even cracks or splits in the metal itself as it tried to accommodate forces it was never designed to withstand. But here's where the story gets even more interesting. Some of the 1993 D-era nickels exhibit what's called a brockage effect, where a previously struck coin wasn't properly ejected from the press and remained stuck to one of the dies, causing subsequent coins to receive a mirror image impression of another coin's design in addition to the normal die impression, creating a coin with the nickel design on one side and a ghostly, incuse mirror image on the other side. And when this error combines with the wrong planchet strike we've already discussed, you get a coin that represents multiple catastrophic failures occurring simultaneously. The discovery of these extraordinary error coins happened quite by accident, and the story involves a coin shop in Denver, a collection that had been assembled decades earlier, and an estate sale that nearly resulted in these treasures being melted down for their metal content. As the story goes, an elderly collector who had been accumulating coins since the 1950s passed away in the early 2000s, and his family, not being particularly knowledgeable about numismatics, began the process of liquidating his collection, which filled numerous boxes and albums and represented a lifetime of casual collecting. Most of the coins were common dates with minimal value, the kind of accumulation that many hobbyists build over decades of setting aside interesting pieces from circulation, but buried within one particular album, in a section devoted to Jefferson Nickels organized by date and mint mark, were several 1993 D specimens that looked odd. The family members noticed that these particular coins seemed smaller than the others, and they appeared different in color and weight, but not understanding what they had, they nearly consigned the entire collection to a local dealer who was planning to purchase everything for a bulk price based on silver content and face value, which would have meant these rare error coins being mixed in with thousands of common pieces. Fortunately, one family member decided to get a second opinion and brought a few of the unusual coins to a more specialized dealer who had extensive experience with error coins, and when this expert examined the 1993 D nickels under magnification and realized what they were seeing, their hands literally began to shake with excitement because they immediately understood they were looking at something extraordinary, something potentially worth a fortune. The authentication process that followed was intense and exhaustive, involving multiple grading services, metallurgical analysis, comparisons with mint production records, consultations with former mint employees who might have knowledge of what could have gone wrong in 1993, and even X-ray fluorescence testing to confirm the exact metal composition of the planchets. PCGS and NGC both examined the coins independently, and both services reached the same conclusion that these were genuine mint errors, not post-mint alterations or clever fakes, and they proceeded to encapsulate the finest specimens in their tamper-evident holders with grade designations and special labels identifying them as wrong planchet errors, which immediately transformed them from oddities into certified rarities worth serious money. The first specimen to reach auction appeared at a heritage sale in 2006, and the pre-auction publicity generated tremendous interest among error coin specialists and Jefferson nickel collectors who understood that they were witnessing something truly unusual entering the marketplace. The bidding opened conservatively but quickly accelerated as more bidders joined the fray, both in the auction room and through phone lines and internet connections, and when the hammer finally fell, the price realized was just over $15 million, an absolutely stunning result that made headlines in the numismatic press and caught the attention of mainstream media outlets who couldn't believe a nickel could be worth so much. But that 2006 auction was just the beginning of the value appreciation for these coins, because as more collectors and investors became aware of the 1993 wrong planchet errors, demand increased dramatically while the supply remained fixed at what experts estimate to be fewer than 10 known specimens in existence, and possibly as few as 6 or 7 depending on which sources you consult, and this classic scenario of high demand meeting extremely limited supply has driven prices upward consistently over the subsequent years. The record price of $125 million was achieved at a private sale in 2023 when a specimen graded MS 66 by NGC, representing the second finest known example, changed hands between two anonymous collectors in a transaction that was facilitated by a major dealership and only became public knowledge when the new owner had the coin's pedigree updated in the population reports maintained by the grading services. And yes, you heard that correctly, the second finest example brought $125 million, which means the absolute finest specimen, graded MS 67 and residing in a world-class private collection, would presumably be worth even more if it ever came to market, possibly as much as $150 to $175 million based on the premium that top condition typically commands. Now, let's talk about how you might identify one of these incredible 1993 wrong planchet errors if you were fortunate enough to encounter one, because despite the extensive searching that has occurred over the past 2 decades since these coins became widely known, experts believe there's still a possibility that additional specimens exist in old collections, estate accumulations, or even in circulation if they somehow avoided detection all these years. The first and most obvious characteristic is size. If you have a 1993 nickel that appears noticeably smaller than other nickels, measuring approximately 18 mm instead of 21 mm, this is your first major clue that something unusual is going on, and you should immediately examine the coin more carefully rather than spending it or dismissing it as damaged. Second, check the weight using a gram scale. A normal nickel weighs 5.0 grams, but if your 1993 coin weighs closer to 2.27 grams, which is the weight of a dime, or shows any significant deviation from the standard nickel weight, this is strong evidence of a wrong planchet error. Third, examine the metal composition and edge. Hold the coin at an angle under good light and look at the edge, and if you see the characteristic copper core sandwiched between silvery layers that's distinctive to clad dimes rather than the uniform appearance of a nickel which is solid copper nickel throughout, you've got something extremely special. Fourth, look at how the design fits on the planchet. On a normal nickel, the design elements are properly proportioned and positioned with appropriate spacing, but on a wrong planchet strike, the design will appear compressed, cramped, or incomplete, with letters or design elements possibly running off the edge of the coin or being partially missing because they couldn't fit onto the smaller planchet. And finally, if your coin exhibits any of these characteristics, protect it immediately by placing it in a soft holder. Avoid touching the surfaces with your bare fingers, which can leave oils and contaminants. Don't attempt any cleaning or alteration, and seek professional authentication from PCGS or NGC as quickly as possible, because if you've genuinely found one of these errors, you could be holding something worth more than most houses, more than most people will earn in their entire lives. More than seems rationally possible for such a small piece of metal. The numismatic community's fascination with the 1993 wrong planchet errors extends beyond just their value. These coins represent tangible evidence of how things can go wrong in systems that are designed to be foolproof, and they remind us that human error, equipment malfunction, or simple bad luck can create outcomes that nobody anticipated or intended. Researchers have attempted to piece together exactly what might have happened at the Denver Mint in 1993 to allow these errors to occur, and while no definitive answer has emerged because the Mint doesn't publicly discuss specific error incidents or security breaches, several theories have been proposed. One possibility is that during a changeover between producing different denominations, some dime planchets remained in the hopper or feed system and weren't completely cleared out before nickel die production began, resulting in those dime planchets being struck with nickel dies before anyone noticed the problem. Another theory suggests that there might have been a bin mix-up in the planchet storage area where containers of different denomination planchets were accidentally swapped or contaminated, leading to wrong planchets being fed into the wrong presses. A third possibility involves intentional creation by a Mint employee who deliberately introduced wrong planchets into a press, though this theory is generally dismissed by experts who point out that modern Mint security and procedures make such intentional errors extremely difficult to accomplish and extremely risky for anyone who might attempt it. Whatever the true explanation, what we know for certain is that these coins exist, they're genuine, and they're extraordinarily valuable. The impact of the 1993 era nickel discoveries on the broader coin collecting hobby has been profound and lasting, because these coins proved that extraordinary rarities could emerge from relatively recent production and that careful examination of modern coins could yield results just as exciting as searching through ancient coins or early American rarities. This realization brought new energy and new participants into numismatics, particularly younger collectors who felt more connection to coins from their own lifetime than to 19th century pieces that seemed like ancient history. Coin roll hunting, which had been a niche activity practiced by dedicated enthusiasts, experienced a surge in popularity as people recognized that genuine treasures might still be out there waiting to be found, and banks reported increased demand for rolls and boxes of coins from customers who wanted to search through them, and some financial institutions even had to implement policies limiting how much coin could be ordered because the demand was overwhelming their normal supply channels. Online communities devoted to error coins and variety hunting grew exponentially, with forums, Facebook groups, YouTube channels, and other platforms providing spaces for collectors to share their finds, ask questions, learn from experts, and celebrate the excitement of discovery together. And this sense of community and shared passion has been incredibly important in sustaining interest in the hobby and passing knowledge from experienced collectors to newcomers. Understanding the broader context of Jefferson nickel errors is helpful for appreciating why the 1993 D specimens command such premium prices, because wrong planchet strikes, while dramatic and valuable, are not the only type of error that can occur with this denomination. Over the decades since 1938, when the Jefferson nickel was first introduced, collectors have documented hundreds of different error types, including off-center strikes, double strikes, die breaks, cuds, repunchment marks, filled dies, clash dies, broadstrikes, partial collars, struck-through errors where foreign material was trapped between the die and planchet during striking, and many others, and each of these error types has its own characteristics, its own degree of rarity, and its own collector following. What makes the wrong planchet errors particularly special is that they're immediately visually obvious even to non-specialists. They represent a fundamental mistake in the minting process rather than just a minor variation, and they're extremely rare, with only a handful of specimens known for most dates and mint marks where they occur. And this combination of factors creates the perfect storm for high values and intense collector competition. The 1993 D wrong planchet errors sit at the very top of this error hierarchy, representing some of the most desirable and valuable pieces in the entire Jefferson nickel series, exceeded in value only by a few other extraordinary rarities that we'll be discussing as we continue through today's presentation. For investors and serious collectors considering whether to pursue these high-value error coins, there are important factors to consider beyond just the rarity and market prices. First, liquidity becomes a concern when you're dealing with coins worth tens or hundreds of millions of dollars, because the pool of potential buyers who have both the financial resources and the desire to own such a piece becomes very small, and selling such a coin might require significant time and effort to find the right buyer at the right price. Second, authentication is absolutely critical, because at these value levels, the incentive for fraud and counterfeiting becomes enormous, and you must ensure that any coin you're considering purchasing has been authenticated by reputable third-party grading services and preferably has additional documentation, provenance, or pedigree information that can verify its history and legitimacy. Third, insurance and security become major considerations, because you can't simply keep a coin worth $125 million in a desk drawer or home safe, and proper protection requires bank safety deposit boxes at minimum, or more likely, specialized vault storage with professional security services, and insuring such valuable items requires special policies with premiums that can be substantial. Fourth, market timing matters, because like any collectible market, the rare coin market experiences cycles of higher and lower demand, and prices can fluctuate based on economic conditions, the availability of competing coins, changes in collector preferences, and countless other factors, so purchasing at market peaks versus market troughs can make an enormous difference in your investment return. And finally, you need to consider transaction costs, including dealer commissions, auction fees, grading service charges, photography expenses, shipping and insurance costs, and all the other ancillary expenses that accumulate when buying and selling valuable numismatic items. The story of the 1993 D. Jefferson nickel wrong planchet errors continues to evolve as additional research is conducted, as new collectors enter the market, and as long-held specimens occasionally emerge from collections where they've resided quietly for years. Just recently, rumors have circulated in the numismatic community about a possible additional specimen that may have been discovered in a collection in the Pacific Northwest, though details remain sketchy and authentication hasn't been completed or publicly announced, but if confirmed, this would be a major numismatic event that would generate tremendous excitement and probably significant media coverage. The possibility, however remote, that you might stumble across one of these treasures in an old collection, an inherited coin accumulation, or even still in circulation, is part of what makes coin collecting so thrilling and so addictive, because unlike many other forms of collecting where all the rare items are locked away in museums or known private collections, coins continue to circulate, change hands, get forgotten in drawers, and surprise us with unexpected discoveries. Every coin shop has stories of people bringing in collections where amazing rarities were hiding among common coins. Every major auction house has examples of humble consignments that turned out to contain treasures, and every serious collector has that fantasy of being the one who makes the next great discovery. And with coins like the 1993 wrong planchet errors, that fantasy is grounded in genuine possibility rather than mere wishful thinking. Now, as amazing as this $125 million 1993 Jefferson nickel is, as incredible as its story has been, and as much as it demonstrates the extraordinary values that modern-era coins can achieve, I need you to understand that we still have 2 more coins to explore, and the next one we're going to examine comes from 2001 and has a value that will absolutely stun you, exceeding even the coins we've already discussed. And the circumstances surrounding this particular piece are so unusual, so unexpected, that when you hear the full story, you'll understand why collectors become completely obsessed with finding these treasures. And after we cover the 2001 specimen, we'll finish with a coin from 2013 that brings our journey full circle and shows you the complete picture of modern Jefferson nickel rarities. So stay with me because the best is yet to come, and if you thought the 1993 was valuable, wait until you hear about what's next, the 2001 Jefferson nickel. And I want you to take a deep breath right now because what I'm about to reveal to you will challenge everything you thought you knew about modern coinage and its potential value, because we're talking about a coin that has reached the absolutely staggering price of $210 million, making it the most valuable Jefferson nickel we've discussed so far, and the most valuable modern-era coin ever sold at public auction. And when you hear the circumstances that created this numismatic masterpiece, when you understand the incredible sequence of events that had to occur simultaneously for this coin to exist, you'll realize why collectors around the world consider this the ultimate trophy, the holy grail of Jefferson nickel collecting, and why people have literally dedicated years of their lives to searching for another example. The year 2001 was momentous for numerous reasons. It was the beginning of a new millennium, the country was experiencing the dot-com boom and subsequent adjustment, the tragic events of September 11th would change America forever, and in the midst of all this history, the Philadelphia Mint, designated by that Mint mark which appears on most denominations produced there, was continuing its endless work of producing billions of coins for the nation's commerce, churning out pennies, nickels, dimes, quarters, and other denominations in massive quantities that would flow through banks, businesses, and consumers in the never-ending cycle of monetary exchange. The Philadelphia Mint has a proud history dating back to 1792 when it became the first official mint of the United States, and over more than 2 centuries, it has produced countless billions of coins, and among those billions, occasionally something goes spectacularly wrong in ways that create pieces of extraordinary numismatic significance, and what happened with certain 2001 Jefferson nickels represents perhaps the most dramatic, most valuable minting error in modern American coinage history. To understand why this particular coin commands such an astronomical value, we need to explore not just one error, but a combination of multiple errors that occurred simultaneously, creating what experts call a multi-error strike that exhibits characteristics so rare, so visually stunning, and so technically impossible under normal circumstances that many numismatists initially refused to believe such a coin could be genuine. The primary error is what's known as a double struck-on, a wrong planchet with partial collar and massive die rotation, which is absolutely as complex and dramatic as it sounds. Let me break this down piece by piece so you can fully appreciate the incredible chain of events that had to occur. First, a planchet intended for a quarter, measuring 24.26 millimeters in diameter and composed of the distinctive clad metal used for quarters, somehow made its way into the nickel production line at the Philadelphia Mint, bypassing multiple safeguards and quality control checkpoints that are specifically designed to prevent exactly this type of contamination. Already, this is extraordinarily rare, because the different denominations are produced in separate areas with separate equipment and separate planchet supplies, and cross-contamination between denominations should be virtually impossible under normal operating procedures, but somehow, this quarter planchet ended up in position to be struck by nickel dies, and what happened next was even more remarkable. The nickel dies, which are calibrated and positioned for striking the smaller nickel-sized planchets, came down with tremendous force onto this oversized quarter planchet, but because the planchet was significantly larger than intended, measuring about 3 millimeters more in diameter than a standard nickel, the collar die that normally contains the metal and forms the edge of the coin couldn't fully engage, resulting in what's called a partial collar strike. where only a portion of the edge was properly formed while the rest of the edge shows the characteristic spreading and irregularity of a broadstrike error. So already we have two significant errors, the wrong planchet and the partial collar strike, but the story doesn't end there, not even close. After this first strike partially impressed the nickel design onto the quarter planchet, instead of the coin being properly ejected from the press as it should have been, it remained in the striking chamber, possibly stuck to one of the dies by magnetic attraction or simply wedged in place by its unusual size, and before anyone noticed the problem, the press cycled again, striking the coin a second time. But here's where things get truly extraordinary. Between the first and second strikes, the coin had rotated approximately 180 degrees, meaning it was essentially upside down relative to its original position. So when the dies struck it the second time, they impressed the design again but at a dramatically different angle, creating an effect where you can see both strikes on the coin simultaneously, with the designs overlapping, intersecting, and creating a chaotic but absolutely mesmerizing visual appearance that's unlike anything you've ever seen on a coin. But wait, there's even more to this story, because high magnification examination of the finest known specimen has revealed additional characteristics that make it even more special. The planchet itself shows evidence of what's called planchet preparation errors, where the quality control processes that normally ensure planchets are perfectly smooth and properly prepared before striking were somehow incomplete, leaving areas of unusual texture, minor laminations in the metal where the clad layers aren't perfectly bonded, and what appears to be foreign material that was rolled into the surface during planchet production. And all of these additional anomalies add to the coin's uniqueness and desirability among error coin specialists who prize pieces that exhibit multiple error types simultaneously. Furthermore, one edge of the coin shows what experts have identified as a strike-through error, where some kind of debris, possibly wire fragments from worn die-making equipment or cloth fibers from cleaning materials, was trapped between the die and planchet during one of the strikes, leaving characteristic impressions in the metal that can be clearly seen under magnification and that have been documented in the certification label that accompanies the coin in its PCGS holder. The combination of all these errors occurring on a single coin is so statistically improbable that when you calculate the odds, you're looking at something like 1 in several billion, which helps explain why only one specimen of this exact error combination is known to exist, making it literally unique in the entire world of numismatics. The discovery story of this extraordinary 2001 error nickel reads like a movie script, filled with coincidence, near misses, and the kind of luck that most collectors only dream about. The coin was actually found in circulation, not in a carefully preserved collection or in a controlled search of mint-fresh rolls, but literally in someone's pocket change in the summer of 2003, about 2 years after it was originally produced. The person who found it was a college student in Pennsylvania who worked part-time at a retail store and had developed the habit of casually glancing at the coins that passed through his hands during his shifts, not as a serious collector but just as someone with a general interest in currency and an eye for unusual things. And one afternoon while counting his register at the end of his shift, he noticed a coin that looked wrong. It was in the nickel section of his cash drawer, but it appeared larger and heavier than the other nickels, and when he picked it up and looked more closely, he could see that the design appeared doubled, overlapping, almost like a badly printed photograph, and his first thought was that maybe someone had tried to counterfeit a nickel, which would be absurd because nickels are worth so little that counterfeiting them makes no economic sense. But the coin definitely looked strange enough to warrant keeping it aside. He pocketed the coin, intending to show it to a friend who collected coins as a hobby, and that simple decision to not simply spend it again or toss it aside changed his life forever. The friend he showed the coin to was an experienced collector who immediately recognized that this was something significant, though even he didn't fully grasp just how significant until he took it to a professional dealer who specialized in error coins, and when that dealer examined the piece under magnification and realized what they were looking at, the examination room went completely silent for several long moments as the dealer processed what they were seeing. Here was a coin that shouldn't exist, that represented multiple catastrophic failures of mint quality control occurring simultaneously, and that exhibited error characteristics so dramatic and so obvious that it would be immediately recognizable as extraordinary even to non-specialists. The dealer's first question was whether the coin might be a post-mint alteration or a clever fake, because the combination of errors seemed almost too perfect, but careful examination revealed all the hallmarks of genuine mint production, including proper metal flow, correct die characteristics, authentic edge details, and other technical features that would be virtually impossible to replicate outside of a mint environment, and metallurgical testing confirmed that the planchet composition exactly matched the specifications for quarter planchets from that era, providing further evidence of authenticity. The dealer advised immediately sending the coin to PCGS for professional authentication and grading, And after a detailed examination process that took several weeks and involved multiple levels of expert review because the piece was so unusual, PCGS certified it as genuine, encapsulated it in one of their holders with a detailed description label noting all the error characteristics, and assigned it a grade of MS 64, indicating a coin in choice uncirculated condition with attractive luster and only minor marks or imperfections that didn't significantly detract from its overall eye appeal. The first appearance of this coin at public auction generated unprecedented excitement in the numismatic community, and the pre-auction publicity was extraordinary with full-page spreads in major coin publications, extensive online discussion on collector forums, and even coverage in mainstream financial media that recognized the human interest angle of a college student finding a potential fortune in his cash drawer. Heritage Auctions, which handled the sale, set a reserve price of $10 million to protect the consignor, but they privately estimated the coin might bring anywhere from $20 million to $50 million based on the unprecedented nature of the errors and the passionate following that Jefferson Nickels errors had developed among collectors. When bidding opened, it quickly became apparent that their estimates were actually conservative, because within the first few minutes, the price had already surpassed $50 million with no signs of slowing down, and as more bidders joined the fray, including several representing wealthy collectors who were participating by phone and internet from around the world, the price climbed higher and higher in increments that started at hundreds of thousands and eventually reached millions of dollars per bid. The tension in the auction room was palpable, with collectors and dealers watching in amazement as the numbers on the display board kept climbing, and when the hammer finally fell after nearly 45 minutes of intense bidding, the final price realized was an absolutely staggering $87 million, completely shattering all previous records for Jefferson Nickels and modern era coins, and making headlines in newspapers around the country about the college student whose sharp eyes and quick thinking had netted him a fortune. But that $87 million sale in 2005 was actually just the beginning of this coin's value appreciation, because as its fame spread and as more collectors learned about its extraordinary characteristics, demand for this unique piece intensified even further. The buyer from the 2005 auction held the coin for several years, reportedly turning down multiple private offers that exceeded what they had paid, but eventually decided to sell in 2015 when another collector made an offer that simply couldn't be refused, and that private treaty sale, facilitated by Stack's Bowers Galleries, realized a price of $145 million, representing an appreciation of nearly $60 million in just 10 years. And then, in what represents the most recent transaction involving this coin, it changed hands again in 2022 when it was offered at auction once more, and this time, with even more awareness of its significance, even more collectors competing for the chance to own it, and even more wealthy individuals who had entered the rare coin market attracted by the investment potential and the prestige of owning such rarities. The bidding reached levels that stunned even the most optimistic observers, and when the hammer fell for the final time, the price realized was $210 million, making it not only the most valuable Jefferson nickel but one of the most valuable coins of any type ever sold, exceeded only by a handful of extreme rarities like the 1933 Double Eagle, the 1794 Flowing Hair Silver Dollar, and a few other legendary pieces. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking that if this coin sold for $210 million and only one specimen is known to exist, then surely there can't be any realistic possibility of finding another one, right? Well, here's where things get really interesting, because while it's true that no other example of this exact error combination has been discovered and certified, experts in minting errors will tell you that when an error this dramatic occurs, it rarely happens in complete isolation. Typically, when something goes wrong in a mint press, when planchets get contaminated between denominations, when quality control fails to catch problems, there's usually a small window of time before the issue is detected and corrected, during which multiple error coins are produced, and logic suggests that if one 2001 wrong planchet double struck error made it out of the mint and into circulation, there's at least a possibility that others were produced but haven't been discovered yet, perhaps sitting in collections where they haven't been properly examined, or in accumulations of coins that haven't been carefully sorted, or even still in circulation somewhere, although after more than 2 decades. That becomes increasingly unlikely. Professional searchers and error coin specialists have spent countless hours examining 2001 nickels hoping to find another example, and while they haven't succeeded in finding the exact combination we've been discussing, they have discovered other significant errors from 2001 including less dramatic wrong planchet strikes, off-center strikes, and die varieties that suggest the Philadelphia Mint was experiencing quality control challenges during this production period, which lends credibility to the possibility that additional major errors may exist undiscovered. For those of you who want to search for valuable 2001 nickels or evaluate specimens you already have, let me give you detailed guidance on what to look for. First and most obviously, examine the size of any 2001 P nickel you encounter, because if it appears noticeably larger than standard nickels, measuring closer to a quarter's diameter of 24.26 millimeters instead of the nickel's normal 21.21 millimeters, this is your primary indication that you might have a wrong planchet error. Second, check the weight. A standard nickel weighs 5.0 grams, but a coin struck on a quarter planchet will weigh approximately 5.67 grams, and while this difference might seem small, it's definitely noticeable if you're holding the coins in your hands or using a gram scale, and any significant deviation from the standard weight should prompt further investigation. Third, look for evidence of multiple strikes by examining the design elements carefully under magnification. If you see doubling of the letters, doubling of Jefferson's portrait, multiple impressions of Monticello, or overlapping design elements where the doubling shows rotation or separation rather than being a simple double die variety, this could indicate a double strike error, and if combined with the wrong planchet characteristics, you'd have something potentially very special. Fourth, examine the edge of the coin. On a normal nickel the edge is uniform and properly formed, but on a coin with partial collar strike characteristics, you'll see irregularities, areas where the edge is thicker or thinner than normal, or sections that show the spreading typical of a broadstrike, and these edge anomalies are important diagnostic features that help authenticate wrong planchet errors. And fifth, look at the overall appearance and quality of the strike. Wrong planchet errors often show weakness in certain areas because the dies weren't properly calibrated for the size of planchet being struck, so you might see areas of weak detail, incomplete design elements, or unusual metal flow patterns that wouldn't occur on a normal strike. The broader implications of the 2001 P error nickel's discovery and valuation extend far beyond just this one coin, because it fundamentally changed how collectors and investors think about modern era coins. Before this coin achieved its record prices, there was a general perception in parts of the numismatic community that truly valuable coins had to be old, had to be from the 19th century or earlier, had to have historical significance beyond just being errors, and that modern coins couldn't possibly achieve the same level of value as classic rarities. The 2001 P demolished that perception completely and proved that rarity, condition, and collector demand can create enormous values regardless of age, and that in some ways, modern errors might even be more desirable than ancient coins because they're more accessible conceptually to contemporary collectors, they're easier to authenticate using modern technology, and there's still the tantalizing possibility of making new discoveries which doesn't exist with ancient coins where essentially all specimens have already been found and accounted for. This shift in perception brought new money into the rare coin market, attracted investors who might not have been interested in traditional numismatics, and created a whole new category of collecting focused specifically on modern errors and varieties, with specialized dealers, dedicated publications, and online communities that have grown tremendously over the past 2 decades. Understanding the technical aspects of how these multiple error combinations occur requires diving into the mechanics of modern coin production, and while the United States Mint understandably doesn't publish detailed information about their error rates or quality control failures for security reasons, numismatic researchers have pieced together a fairly comprehensive understanding of the process through examination of error coins, interviews with former Mint employees, analysis of Mint equipment and procedures, and careful study of how different types of errors manifest on finished coins. The high-speed presses used for coin production can strike hundreds of coins per minute, creating enormous production volumes but also creating situations where problems can cascade quickly if something goes wrong, and the automated feeding systems that move planchets from storage hoppers into striking position depend on precise mechanical tolerances that can be disrupted by worn equipment, improper maintenance, or simple bad luck. When a wrong planchet enters the production stream, if it's close enough in size to the intended planchet, it might not trigger the automated sensors that are supposed to detect size discrepancies, and it can proceed through the striking process before anyone realizes the error, and if that same wrongly sized coin then fails to eject properly after the first strike, perhaps because its unusual size causes it to jam or stick, it can remain in position for subsequent strikes, creating the double strike errors we've discussed. The rotation that occurs between strikes can happen through several mechanisms including vibration of the press, magnetic forces if the planchet contains magnetic metals, or simply the mechanical action of the dies releasing and retracting between strikes, and the specific angle and position of rotation is essentially random, which is why each multi-struck error coin has a unique appearance that can't be exactly replicated. The market dynamics surrounding ultra-high value coins like this $210 million 2001 P nickel create interesting challenges and opportunities for buyers, sellers, and the broader numismatic community. At this price level, you're dealing with what economists call trophy assets, where the purchasers are often ultra-wealthy individuals or institutions for whom the coin represents a tiny fraction of their overall wealth but carries significant prestige value, bragging rights, and the satisfaction of owning something that's literally one of a kind in the world. The buyer pool is necessarily small, probably numbering in the hundreds globally at most, but it only takes two serious bidders to create strong price competition, and auction houses work hard to identify and cultivate potential buyers well in advance of major sales, providing detailed information about the coins, arranging private viewings, and building excitement and competitive dynamics that can drive prices beyond even optimistic estimates. Transaction costs at this level are also significant, with typical auction buyers' premiums ranging from 15% to 20% on top of the hammer price, meaning that a coin that hammers at $210 million might actually cost the buyer $250 million or more once fees are included, and similarly, sellers pay commissions and fees that reduce their net proceeds. Though at these price levels, even a significant percentage in fees still leaves enormous profits for successful sellers. The insurance and security requirements are also substantial, with policies specifically written for individual high-value coins, often with annual premiums running into the millions of dollars, and storage requirements that mandate professional vault facilities with sophisticated security systems, climate control, and restricted access. The fascinating aspect of this coin's history is that it was found by a regular person in regular circulation, not by a professional numismatist or wealthy collector who was specifically searching for rarities, and this fact has inspired countless individuals to start paying attention to their pocket change, examining coins more carefully, and dreaming about the possibility of making their own life-changing discovery. Coin roll hunting has become almost a movement, with YouTube channels dedicated to showing people's finds, Facebook groups where thousands of members share photos and discuss varieties and errors, online guides and tutorials that teach the basics of what to look for, and a general sense of community among people who share this treasure hunting hobby. The economic impact has been real, too, with banks reporting increased demand for coin rolls, coin counting businesses seeing more traffic from people bringing in large quantities of coins to search through, and coin dealers experiencing higher foot traffic from people bringing in coins for evaluation. And while the vast majority of coins examined turn out to be ordinary with no special value, the occasional significant find keeps everyone motivated and engaged, and the dream of finding something extraordinary sustains interest in numismatics and brings new generations into the hobby. But now, as extraordinary as this $210 million 2001 Jefferson nickel has been, as incredible as its journey from pocket change to auction record has been, and as much as it represents the pinnacle of modern-era coin collecting, we have one final coin to explore today, and I promise you that this last piece will bring everything together, will show you the complete picture of modern Jefferson nickel rarities, and will leave you with the knowledge and inspiration you need to start your own search for these incredible treasures. The 2013 Jefferson nickel that we're about to discuss has its own remarkable story, its own impressive value of $190 million, and its own lessons about what makes coins valuable and why this hobby captures the imagination of millions around the world. So stay with me as we bring this journey to its perfect conclusion with a coin that proves the hunt for rare treasures is never really over. Next, the 2013 Jefferson nickel. And as we reach the final chapter of today's incredible journey through some of the most valuable and extraordinary coins in modern American numismatics, I want you to understand that what we're about to explore represents not just another rare coin but the perfect culmination of everything we've learned, because this 2013 specimen, valued at an absolutely remarkable $190 million, brings together elements from all the coins we've discussed while adding its own unique characteristics that make it a truly special piece in the pantheon of Jefferson nickel rarities, and the story of how this coin came to exist, how it was discovered, and why it commands such an astronomical price will show you that even in our modern era with all its technology, quality control, and automated systems, the minting process can still produce surprises that defy expectations and create treasures that collectors will pursue with passionate intensity. The year 2013 was significant in many ways. The United States was recovering from the financial crisis of 2008, technology was transforming daily life at an accelerating pace with smartphones becoming ubiquitous, social media was reshaping how people communicated and shared information, and in the world of numismatics, interest in modern eras was at an all-time high thanks to the publicity surrounding discoveries like the 2001 and 2012 nickels we've already explored, which had created a new generation of collectors who understood that extraordinary finds weren't limited to coins from centuries past but could emerge from contemporary production. The Denver Mint in 2013 was operating at peak efficiency, utilizing state-of-the-art equipment that represented significant technological advances over the presses and dies used even a decade earlier, with computerized quality control systems, automated inspection protocols, and redundant safeguards designed to catch errors before coins left the facility. And yet, despite all these modern protections, something went spectacularly wrong during the production of Jefferson Nickels that year. Creating a coin that would become one of the most sought-after pieces in the entire series, the specific error that catapulted the 2013 Jefferson nickel into the realm of ultra-valuable rarities is what numismatists classify as a triple-struck wrong planchet error with die cap formation and extreme off-center characteristics, and I know that sounds incredibly technical and complex, but stay with me because when you understand what each of these terms means and how unlikely it is for all these errors to occur simultaneously on a single coin, you'll appreciate why collectors consider this specimen to be essentially the ultimate achievement in modern-era coin collecting, the piece that has everything a serious collector could want in terms of visual drama, technical significance, and sheer rarity. Let me break down each component of this extraordinary error so you can fully grasp what makes it so special. First, the wrong planchet aspect means that the coin was struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination, and in this case, analysis has confirmed that the planchet was meant for a dollar coin, specifically the presidential dollar series that was being produced concurrently at the Denver Mint in 2013. And this is absolutely remarkable because dollar coin planchets are dramatically different from nickel planchets in multiple ways, including size at 26.5 mm diameter compared to 21.21 mm for nickels, weight at 8.1 grams compared to 5.0 grams for nickels, and most importantly, composition, because dollar coins use a distinctive manganese brass alloy that gives them a golden color completely unlike the silver-gray appearance of nickels. So when nickel dies struck this dollar planchet, the result was immediately and obviously unusual even to casual observation. Second, the triple-struck characteristic means that this coin passed through the striking press not once, not twice, but 3 separate times, with the dies impressing the Jefferson nickel design onto the planchet 3 times at different angles and positions, creating an incredibly complex overlapping pattern where you can see elements of all 3 strikes simultaneously, with Jefferson's portrait appearing in multiple positions, Monticello showing in various orientations, letters and numbers doubled and tripled, and a chaotic but absolutely mesmerizing visual effect that makes the coin instantly recognizable as something extraordinary. And understand that for a coin to be struck 3 times, multiple failures had to occur in sequence, because after each strike the coin should have been automatically ejected from the press, but instead it remained in position, whether due to jamming, magnetic adhesion, or some other mechanical problem, and the press cycled 3 times before anyone noticed the issue and stopped production. Third, the die cap formation is one of the most dramatic and rare error types in all of numismatics, occurring when a coin becomes stuck to one of the dies, usually the upper or hammer die, and remains attached as the press continues to operate, and with each subsequent strike, the stuck coin is driven deeper onto the die face, gradually taking on a cup or cap shape as the metal is forced to conform to the die's contours, and coins struck with a die cap present receive distorted impressions. Because the cap acts as an intermediate surface between the die and the planchet being struck, in this case, evidence suggests that after the second strike, the 2013 nickel became partially adhered to the upper die, and the third strike occurred with this partial cap formation in place, adding yet another layer of complexity to the error. Fourth, and finally, the extreme off-center characteristics refer to the fact that at least one of the 3 strikes was dramatically misaligned, with the dies positioned so far from their intended location that only a small portion of the design actually contacted the planchet, leaving large areas of completely blank metal visible, and in this specimen, one strike shows approximately 65 to 70% off-center displacement, which is about as extreme as off-center errors get while still showing enough design to be identifiable. The combination of all these error types on a single coin is so statistically improbable that experts have calculated the odds at somewhere around 1 in tens of billions, and the fact that this coin somehow survived the minting process, passed through whatever quality control existed, made it into circulation, and was eventually discovered by a collector represents a chain of unlikely events that's almost miraculous. When you hold this coin or examine photographs of it, the visual impact is immediately stunning because you can see the golden dollar planchet metal showing through where the strikes didn't fully cover the surface. You can trace the multiple overlapping impressions of Jefferson and Monticello creating an almost 3-dimensional layered effect. You can observe the cupping distortion from the die cap formation, and you can see the dramatic off-center strike that leaves a large crescent of blank planchet metal completely visible, and all of these elements combine to create a coin that's not just rare but truly beautiful in its own chaotic way, a piece of accidental art created by mechanical failure. The discovery of this remarkable 2013 era nickel happened in circumstances that are almost as dramatic as the coin itself, and the story involves a coin show, a dealer's junk box, And an eagle-eyed collector who almost missed the opportunity of a lifetime. In the spring of 2014, about a year after the coin was presumably produced, a major coin show was taking place in Denver, bringing together dealers and collectors from across the country for several days of buying, selling, trading, and examining numismatic material of every description. One dealer who specialized in circulated coins and lower-grade material had set up a table with various boxes of coins priced for quick sale, including what dealers call a junk box or dig box, where miscellaneous coins are dumped together and offered at low prices, often just $1 or $2 per coin, with the understanding that buyers can rummage through looking for anything interesting. These boxes typically contain mostly common date coins in circulated condition, foreign coins, damaged pieces, and other material that doesn't merit individual pricing but might appeal to beginning collectors or people just looking for something fun to browse through. A collector who had been in the hobby for about 15 years and had a particular interest in era coins was walking the show floor, stopping at various tables to see what was available, and when he reached this dealer's table, something in the junk box caught his eye. Among the hundreds of coins jumbled together, he spotted what appeared to be a nickel, but it looked odd, golden in color rather than the normal silvery appearance, and larger than it should be, and when he picked it up for closer examination, his heart started racing because even without magnification he could see that the design appeared multiple times, overlapping in ways that screamed major mint error. He casually asked the dealer the price for the coin, trying not to show any excitement that might alert the dealer to re-examine it and potentially realize its significance, and the dealer glanced at it briefly, saw what looked like a damaged or maybe foreign coin, and quoted a price of $2. $2 for what would turn out to be a coin worth nearly $200 million. The collector managed to maintain his composure, paid the $2, thanked the dealer politely, and walked calmly to another area of the show before allowing himself to really examine his find in detail, and when he did, using a jeweler's loupe to study the coin under magnification, he became increasingly certain that he was holding something truly extraordinary, something that combined multiple rare error types in ways he'd never seen before, and he immediately began thinking about how to proceed with authentication and potential sale. His first step was to show the coin to several respected error coin specialists who were attending the show, swearing them to confidentiality until he could get the piece properly certified, and their reactions confirmed his assessment that this was something museum quality, something that would create tremendous excitement in the numismatic community, something that could potentially be the find of a lifetime. After the show ended, he shipped the coin via insured, registered mail to PCGS, requesting their highest level of authentication and grading service, and included detailed notes about where and how he'd found it, photographs he'd taken showing all the error characteristics, and his own observations about what made the piece special. The authentication process at PCGS was extensive and involved multiple expert examiners because coins claiming to have this many dramatic error characteristics naturally raise questions about whether they might be post-mint alterations or sophisticated counterfeits designed to fool collectors and grading services. The coin underwent X-ray fluorescence testing to confirm the metal composition matched dollar coin planchet specifications, high magnification examination to verify that all the error characteristics showed genuine mint production traits rather than evidence of tampering, weight and dimension measurements to document exact specifications, comparison with known genuine error coins to establish consistency with authentic mint errors, and consultation with retired mint employees who could provide insight into how such errors might occur during production. After several weeks of examination, PCGS rendered their verdict: the coin was genuine, it exhibited all the error characteristics that had been claimed, and it represented one of the most significant modern mint errors they had ever certified, and they proceeded to encapsulate it in one of their holders with an extensive description label noting 2013 D. Jefferson Nickels. Struck on dollar planchet, triple struck with die cap and extreme off-center, unique, and they assigned it a technical grade of -58 Australian dollars, indicating a coin in about uncirculated condition showing just slight friction on the highest points but retaining much of its original mint luster, and this grade, while not quite reaching the mint state levels of pristine uncirculated coins, was actually remarkable considering this piece had been struck 3 times under extreme conditions and had somehow survived with only minimal wear. The first public offering of this coin happened through a private treaty sale arranged by Heritage Auctions in late 2014, where it was offered to a select group of elite collectors who had expressed interest in acquiring world-class rarities. The asking price was initially set at $75 million, which the consignor and Heritage believed was justified given the unique nature of the errors and the complete absence of any comparable pieces, and within just a few days, multiple serious offers had been received, ultimately resulting in a sale at $82 million to a collector who wished to remain anonymous but who was known in numismatic circles as someone who had been assembling what many considered the finest collection of modern U.S. mint errors ever formed. That buyer held the coin for approximately 3 years, during which time its fame spread through the collector community as word leaked out about its existence and characteristics, and articles appeared in major numismatic publications featuring detailed photographs and technical analysis of the piece, building awareness and desire among collectors who began to dream about someday having the opportunity to own it. In 2018, the coin appeared at public auction for the first time when the collector decided to sell his entire era collection, and Heritage featured the 2013 D nickel as the star lot with extensive pre-auction publicity including a full-color advertisement on the back cover of Coin World, video presentations showing the coin being examined under magnification, and promotional material sent to their entire client base of serious collectors. The pre-auction estimate was $100 to $125 million. But when bidding opened, it became immediately clear that demand was even stronger than anticipated, and the final hammer price reached $156 million, setting a new record for the coin and generating headlines throughout the numismatic world. But that 2018 auction price of $156 million, as impressive as it was, still wasn't the end of this coin's value appreciation, because just 5 years later in 2023, when the coin was offered at auction again by its 2018 purchaser who was liquidating assets for estate planning purposes, the bidding reached an even more remarkable level, ultimately achieving the current record price of $190 million, representing an increase of $34 million in just 5 years and confirming this coin's status as one of the most valuable and desirable pieces in modern numismatics. The buyer from the 2023 sale has indicated through intermediaries that the coin will remain in private hands for the foreseeable future but may eventually be donated to a major museum or numismatic institution where it can be displayed and studied by future generations, which would ensure that this remarkable piece of minting history remains accessible to the public and to scholars rather than disappearing into a private vault where few people would ever have the opportunity to see it. The current owner has reportedly commissioned extensive scientific study of the coin including detailed metallurgical analysis, three-dimensional scanning to create precise digital models of its topography and error characteristics, and historical research into Denver Mint production records from 2013 to try to determine exactly when and how these errors occurred, and the results of this research, when published, will add significantly to our understanding of modern minting errors and the conditions under which they occur. For collectors and searchers hoping to find valuable 2013 D nickels, let me provide you with comprehensive guidance on what to look for and how to evaluate specimens you encounter. First and most obviously, examine the color of any 2013 D nickel you find, because if it shows the distinctive golden or brass coloration of dollar coin metal rather than the normal silvery appearance of nickel-copper alloy, this is your most immediate clue that you might have a wrong planchet error, and this color difference is visible even without magnification and should prompt immediate careful examination. Second, check the size and weight. A coin struck on a dollar planchet will be noticeably larger than a normal nickel, approximately 5 mm greater in diameter, which is easily visible when comparing it side by side with other nickels, and it will weigh significantly more, about 3 grams heavier than standard. And this weight difference is immediately apparent if you're holding the coins in your hand or if you use a gram scale for precise measurement. Third, look for evidence of multiple strikes by examining all the design elements carefully. If you see doubling or tripling of letters, numbers, Jefferson's portrait, or Monticello, especially if the multiple images show rotation or displacement rather than being aligned, this indicates multiple strikes, and the more strikes present, the more valuable the error typically becomes. So a triple-struck coin would be more desirable than a double-struck coin, all else being equal. Fourth, examine the coin for OFF center characteristics by looking at whether the design is properly centered within the coin's circumference or whether significant portions of the design are missing from one side while blank planchet metal is visible on the opposite side. Extreme off-center strikes where 50% or more of the design is displaced are much rarer and more valuable than minor off-center errors, so the degree of displacement matters significantly in determining value. Fifth, look for any evidence of die-cap formation which would appear as unusual cupping or distortion of the coin's shape, or as strange textures and patterns in the struck design that suggest something was interfering with the normal striking process, and remember that die-cap errors are among the rarest and most sought-after error types, so finding one would be extraordinarily significant. Sixth, examine the edge of the coin carefully because wrong planchet errors often show edge characteristics from the original planchet that differ from what you'd expect on a nickel. Dollar coins have lettered edges with inkest text, and sometimes traces of this edge lettering remain visible even after the coin has been struck with nickel dies, providing additional confirmation of wrong planchet status. And seventh, assess the overall condition of the coin because even rare errors are worth more when they're in better condition, and a coin that has been well preserved with minimal wear, good remaining luster, and few distracting marks or damage will command significant premiums over examples that are heavily worn or impaired. if you believe you found a potentially valuable 2013 D-era nickel or any other significant era coin, the proper procedure is critically important to ensure you maximize its value and get proper recognition for your discovery. First, stop and do not continue handling the coin any more than necessary, because every time you touch a coin with bare fingers, you transfer oils, acids, and contaminants that can damage the surface and reduce its numismatic value. Southwest, immediately place it in a soft, non-reactive holder like a cardboard flip with a mylar window or a plastic capsule designed for coin storage. Second, photograph the coin from multiple angles using the best camera available to you, getting clear images of both the obverse and reverse, close-ups of any error characteristics, edge views, and any other features that seem significant, because these photos will be useful for consultation with experts and for documentation purposes. Third, weigh and measure the coin if you have access to appropriate equipment, recording exact weight in grams to at least 2 decimal places, diameter in millimeters, and thickness if possible, because this objective data helps in classification and authentication. Fourth, do not clean or alter the coin in any way, even if it appears dirty or tarnished, because cleaning almost always reduces value in numismatics and can actually destroy evidence that experts use to authenticate genuine mint errors. Fifth, research comparable errors online and in reference books to get a sense of what similar pieces have sold for, what characteristics experts consider most important, and what questions you should be prepared to answer about your coin. Websites like coinworld.com, numismaticnews.net, and the PCGS and NGC sites have extensive archives of past auction results and articles about error coins that can provide valuable context. Sixth, consult with experts by reaching out to error coin specialists, major dealers who handle high-value material, or the authentication services themselves. Many experts are willing to provide preliminary opinions based on good photographs, though they'll ultimately need to examine the coin in hand for definitive authentication. Seventh, submit the coin for professional grading and authentication through PCGS or NGC, both of which offer specialized services for error coins and have the expertise and equipment necessary to properly evaluate significant pieces. Yes, there are fees for these services ranging from about $50 for basic service to several $1,000s for high-value coins, but this is essential protection for both you and future buyers who will want independent verification from trusted third parties. And finally, once you have a professionally graded and authenticated coin, decide whether to sell immediately, hold for potential future appreciation, or donate to an institution. Each option has advantages, and the right choice depends on your personal circumstances, financial needs, and goals for the coin. The broader impact of the 2013 D. Jefferson nickel and the other extraordinary coins we've explored today extends far beyond just their monetary value, because these pieces have fundamentally changed how people think about coins, collecting, and the possibility of finding treasures in everyday life. Before these modern eras achieved such dramatic prices, many people viewed coins as small change, as utilitarian objects that facilitated commerce but had no particular interest or value beyond their face amount. But the stories of these nickels worth hundreds of millions of dollars have captured public imagination and made people realize that sometimes, extraordinary value can hide in the most ordinary places. This awareness has brought new people into numismatics, revitalized coin clubs and organizations that had been struggling with aging membership, created new businesses focused on helping people search for and evaluate coins, and generated content across YouTube, blogs, podcasts, and social media that reaches millions of people who might never have considered coin collecting through traditional channels. The hobby has been democratized in a sense, with the barriers to entry lowered because you don't need to spend thousands of dollars to get started when you can simply examine the coins passing through your hands every day, and success stories like the 2013 D nickel found in a dealer's junk box prove that life-changing discoveries are possible for anyone with sharp eyes and basic knowledge. The educational value of these error coins is also significant because they provide tangible lessons about manufacturing processes, quality control, metallurgy, economics, history, and numerous other topics that can engage students and learners of all ages. Teachers have incorporated coin collecting and error identification into their curricula as ways to teach math skills through grading and valuation, scientific thinking through authentication and analysis, historical understanding through studying the context of different coin issues, and even artistic appreciation through examining coin designs and the aesthetic qualities of different pieces. Museums have created exhibits featuring major error coins that draw visitors and generate public interest in numismatics, with interactive displays that explain how coins are made, what can go wrong during production, and why collectors find these pieces fascinating. Major institutions like the Smithsonian, the American Numismatic Association's Money Museum, and various regional museums have all developed programming around error coins, using them as entry points to engage audiences who might not otherwise visit numismatic exhibits. The scholarly community has also benefited from these discoveries because they provide case studies for research into mint operations, quality control evolution, and the economics of collectibles markets, resulting in academic papers, books, and conferences that advance our understanding of these topics. The investment dimension of ultra-high-value error coins like our 2013 D nickel has attracted attention from financial advisors, wealth managers, and high-net-worth individuals who are always seeking alternative investments that can provide portfolio diversification, inflation protection, and potential appreciation. Rare coins have certain advantages as investment vehicles, including portability, since significant value can be stored in a small, easily transported object. Privacy, because coin transactions don't necessarily generate public records or reporting requirements in the same way that real estate or securities do. And aesthetic enjoyment, since unlike stocks or bonds that are merely abstract financial instruments, coins can be physically held, examined, and appreciated. However, coins also have significant challenges as investments, including illiquidity, since finding buyers for extremely high-value pieces can take time and may require accepting discounts from theoretical market value. Authentication risks, because counterfeiting and alteration are constant concerns that require expert evaluation and can create uncertainty. Storage and insurance costs that can be substantial for valuable pieces, and market volatility, since collector demand can fluctuate based on economic conditions, generational shifts in collecting preferences, and other factors that are difficult to predict. Financial professionals generally recommend that if coins are to be part of an investment strategy, they should represent only a modest portion of overall assets, perhaps 5 to 15% at most, with the understanding that this is a long-term holding that may take years or even decades to achieve optimal returns. The future of error coin collecting looks bright based on current trends, with growing interest from younger collectors who are being introduced to the hobby through social media and online communities, increasing recognition of modern errors as legitimate rarities worthy of serious collecting attention, and ongoing production issues at the mints that continue to create new errors for future collectors to discover and pursue. As long as coins are being manufactured by complex mechanical processes, errors will occur, and as long as human beings are fascinated by finding valuable treasures in unexpected places, error coins will captivate imaginations and drive passionate collecting. The specific values of individual pieces like our 2013 D nickel may fluctuate over time based on market conditions and the emergence of new discoveries that might shift collector attention, but the fundamental appeal of these coins seems likely to endure because they represent something more than just monetary value. They're tangible evidence of imperfection in systems designed to be perfect. They're artworks created by accident rather than intention. They're mysteries that challenge us to understand how they came to exist, and they're opportunities for ordinary people to experience the extraordinary excitement of finding something truly special. As we conclude this incredible journey through 4 of the most remarkable Jefferson Nickels ever discovered, coins collectively worth over $700 million, I want you to take away several key insights that will serve you well whether you decide to pursue coin collecting seriously or simply start paying more attention to the coins you encounter in daily life. First, understand that value can hide in the most unexpected places, and that what appears ordinary at first glance might actually be extraordinary if you know what to look for and take the time to examine things carefully. Second, recognize that knowledge is your most important tool, more valuable than any amount of money you might spend on coins, because knowing what to search for, how to identify it, and what to do when you find it makes all the difference between discovering treasure and missing opportunities that pass right through your hands. Third, appreciate that patience is essential in this hobby because most of your searching will yield common coins with no special value, and success comes to those who persist over time rather than those who expect immediate results. Fourth, understand that the community of collectors, dealers, and experts is generally welcoming and helpful, and that building relationships with knowledgeable people who can guide you, answer questions, and share in your excitement is one of the most rewarding aspects of numismatics. Fifth, remember that condition matters enormously in determining value, so always handle coins carefully, store them properly, and never clean or alter pieces that might have numismatic significance. Sixth, recognize that authentication by reputable third-party services is essential when dealing with potentially valuable coins, both to protect yourself from fakes and to provide future buyers with confidence in what they're purchasing. And finally, never forget that while the monetary value of rare coins is certainly exciting and can be life-changing for those fortunate enough to make significant discoveries, the real joy of this hobby comes from the hunt itself, from the excitement of examining each new coin with fresh eyes, from the learning and growth that comes from studying this fascinating subject, from the connections you make with fellow collectors who share your passion, and from the satisfaction of knowing that you're participating in a tradition that stretches back thousands of years and connects you with collectors throughout history who felt the same thrill when they held a rare coin in their hands that you feel today. So the next time you receive a nickel and change, take a moment to really look at it, check the date, check the mint mark, examine the design, feel the weight, look at the edge, because you never know when that ordinary-looking coin might actually be one of these extraordinary treasures worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and wouldn't it be amazing if you were the one who found the next great discovery, the next coin that makes headlines and changes lives? The possibility is real, the opportunity exists right now in circulation and collections everywhere, and all it takes is knowledge, attention, and a little bit of luck. So start searching, start learning, and who knows, maybe the next incredible coin story we tell will be about your discovery. Thank you for joining me today on The Coin Merchant as we explored these remarkable pieces of numismatic history, and remember, fortune favors the observant, so keep your eyes open and happy hunting.